I don't remember.
Okay, so we last left off, and the whole gang was going back to Brett's um, uh, bandit camp, where they were going to make a plan going forward and how they were going to deal with getting into one of the archmage's castles. So they make it back in, and they're going down a road. And then Brett turns off on his horses and goes just into the side of the woods. Doesn't look like there's any road there. Doesn't look like he's following a path. So the guys in the wagon are like, what are we doing? He's, it's wide enough. You should be able to get that through. So they turn and they head off into the woods, following Brett. Well, they go a decent ways. They travel about 20 to 30 minutes straight into the woods, following a path that's just wide enough for the wagon to get through. And then they come to a clearing. And in this clearing, there is huts. There is wooden huts. There's a couple people walking around. Not a lot. They see maybe 10 or 15. But the thing that's a little odd is that they're younger. A couple of them are kids. They've got a couple of ladies who look like they're holding down the fort,
No, no,
taking care of
no.
things. They only see one or two other people who look like they actually might be bandits. So Circe calls out to Brett
No.
and he says,
No.
"Guys, do you want to hear the story or not?"
Yes.
So Circe calls out to Brett and he says, "What's up with this camp? This seems like an unusual bandit camp." And he says, "Oh well, these are the families of the bandits. They were driven out as well. Once you choose a life of banditry, it's not easy to live in the place that you were. Many of these people were driven out from their homes from the armies, other marauding bandits that came by. We stick together for protection, and it's not a great life, but
Katie, I will kick you off the
it
bed.
keeps us safe. And they bring their families here, and we are family amongst ourselves. So they have their children, they have their spouses, and we go out and do the heavy lifting to bring back the supplies that keep us in relatively okay health. So they pull the wagon over to an area that Brett designates for them. They hop out, and very quickly, a group of people come by and start going through the back of the wagon and looking at the supplies that were already there. There really wasn't much. It was just some rations for the guards that were transporting Jill. There's like some tools, like the ones that Circe was throwing at the horses, and some blankets. They're very excited about the blankets. Um, it's that this time of year it gets a little chilly, and you can never have enough warmth. So a couple of the people in the town are a little bit older. Some of the parents of the bandits, and they've gotten a chill and fallen in bad health. So it's nice that they have some extra blankets.
What's a chill?
They're cold. A chill is a cold.
Oh,
Chilly, cold, ice.
I see.
Yeah.
Please. I see colds.
Yep. So
You can't see colds.
so because we're not arguing, um, Jill starts going around. Now she knows all these people. She was there not too long ago, back when she was part of this group. So she goes around and starts reuniting with her old friends. A lot of people are a little curious to see her there, but once they, yes,
I'm waving my hand.
okay, I see that. So A lot of people are curious on why Jill's there. You know, she didn't leave on great terms, but now that she's back and they see that it's not a dangerous situation, then they're very, very happy to have her back. After all, she was kind of the queen of this camp, as she had said earlier. So,
Sorry.
but after the falling out, apparently things had gotten a little sour. You know, the mood had turned down a little bit. It wasn't as jovial or happy as it was back when she was there. So, Circi and Jack and Moontosser, they kind of settle in and sit down and watch what everybody's doing. They don't really have a place to be yet or anything to do. They're just waiting for some information on, you know, what's going to happen next. Well, it turns out that with the addition of them joining the group and the supplies that they brought with, Brett sets out to have a little celebration. While they were gone, one of the older boys, who's almost to adulthood, had gone out and he had gotten them a boar. So they have a large boar roast that night.
Feast.
Yeah, well, it's not quite a feast. I mean, it's a big pig, but it's not that big of a pig that you know, they can't have their fill, but everybody can have a decent amount.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. So they go out and they start eating, and you know, they enjoy themselves and they have a good time carousing and partying and getting to know each other. So at the end of it, Brett goes over to Circi and he says, "So we've talked about this before, and there's a bit of a tale that we've heard that perhaps a man of your stature, a man of your size and your history, is someone that is going to be a thorn to this wizard folk." Circe looks at him and says, "You know, I'm not really here to do anyone any favors, but I will say that I am definitely in the interested in bringing my family whole. I don't know if my daughter's safe, but I am going to go find her, and I am going to bring her home if I can. And if you can help me with that, then I would very much appreciate it. I know that you have more material interests in mind. You want some of his riches. You say that you want to bring him down for some sort of idea of justice. I just want my family back together, and I'll be happy with that." Brett thinks about that for a minute and kind of nods. It's true, they do have differing ideas on where they want to go and how they want to live after, if they're successful in their quests. But ultimately, they do join their paths. They converge. That getting to their final goals is going to take them through the same place, and that is weakening the Archmage, trying to find out what happened to the other Archmages, and hopefully they can bring some semblance of peace and normalcy back to the land. Hey, welcome back.
No.
So they all go to sleep, and the next day, Circe wakes up, Jack wakes up,
Everyone wakes up.
Moontosser's already awake. He's been outside, running around, getting some exercise. He says he's been on the road a while, but he wants to make sure to stay limber and make sure that he keeps in good constitution.
Come.
So Moontosser's out there exercising already. He's not a particularly big man. He's actually kind of scrawny. You know, being a sailor, they don't have a strong diet, but you know, he does try and keep active.
Don't sailors have to move heavy stuff?
Not really. They just have to move a lot.
They
So.
have to move logs sometimes.
Not really. Any logs would be part of the ship. You're not really moving the ship. The wind does that.
No. But they have to carry the loads onto the ship.
Well, yeah, they load and unload.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do that.
So they have to be a certain strength.
Sure.
Too.
Sure. So anywho. So. He's out there exercising, doing his thing. And Jake catches him on one of his laps around the area. He says, "So, what are you doing this morning?" He says, "Oh, you know, just trying to stay fit, trying to stay active." And Jack, who's not a particularly athletic man, but wants some company, decides that he's going to join him. Circi, not so much. He wakes up, has a seat, goes and grabs some eggs from the chicken,
Food.
and goes to preparing his eggs over to the smoldering coals of the fire from the night before. It's about this time that Jill comes out of her tent, or not tent, out of her cabin. There was one of the open ones that she's able to use. So she comes out of her cabin and sees the two younger men running around and Circi making some eggs. Walks up to him and sits down and says, "So it seems you've made yourself at home here. I hope you're enjoying yourself in our little alcove." As well, you know, it hasn't treated me too poorly so far,
It's okay.
and apparently we're getting closer to where I need to be. You haven't told me much, but I believe that we're going to end up at the same place, and hopefully I can get what I'm looking for. So she thinks about it, and then walks back and actually goes over to Brett's cabin, and they have a little talk. She says, "So," he's asleep. She wakes him up, and she sits down and says, "So, I've been thinking about this plan of yours, and I think it's a good one. But I do have to tell you, I don't have the map. I know where I put it, and we can get it." Guys, stop poking at each other. But it's gonna take a little bit because I stashed it behind a brick in the cell that they were holding me in.
Ooh, that's a problem.
It was a loose brick, and I was afraid that they were going to find it. I didn't have a chance to get rid of it before they grabbed me. So I pulled one of the bricks off, and there was a hollow space. I put the map back there. I put the brick back. Now, I believe it should still be there. But
stole it.
I don't know. So we should probably act relatively quickly. Now, Brett's kind of angry at this. He has spent the last few years avoiding the guards, you know, being a bandit and all. So he rallies the troops after they have a little breakfast, and he starts to scheme. Scheme.
Oh.
Come up with a plan. And he's thinking. And he's planning.
His gears are turning.
His gears are turning. And he sends one of the younger boys. And by younger boy, I mean like one of the younger, almost men.
Like Joey?
Yeah. So it is mid-teens. His mid-teens. So he sends one of the younger men. and he gives him a horse, and he says, "I want you to go into town. I want you to learn what you can about this area, and I want you to come back to me. Find out how many people, find out where the prisons are, how accessible they are, and I'm going to use this information to. What are you doing?
I don't know.
Then sit down. And I'm going to use this information to try and come up with some way to get this map that does not involve us losing anyone or us getting captured. So,
Or being seen.
well, they're probably going to be seen. There's a good chance they're going to be seen. They have to break into prison.
Well, except
It's not normal to break into prison. Normally
except
people are trying to break out of prison.
prisoners.
So first they have to break into prison, then they need to break back out of prison. So,
That's weird.
so the boy takes the horse. He takes a little bit of the riches, a little bit of money, and
He's lying on like.
he rides off. So this young lad rides off the half hour to get back to the road, making sure to wear clothes that are non-conspicuous, that don't in any way denote him as a member of a bandit group. Guys, if you want to listen, you're going to have to calm down and stop fussing, or we'll just stop. Julian, stop. So, he gets back to the road, and he starts heading back to town. Now, to get back to the town that she was imprisoned at is actually going to take him quite a while, because they're going to have to go through the main town.
The forest also.
That, well, he already got through on the road, so he's already there. But he's got to have to go back through the town that Jill is from. He's going to have to go to the larger town where she was imprisoned. And then he's going to have to get all the information that they need. That's going to take him a couple days. So he rides off.
So he rides off.
And he gets to the first town.
And he goes to the first town.
This is not where he's from. This is where Jill's from. But he is familiar that he needs to be careful because he might be spotted and recognized. Probably not, but he might. He stops in at the inn, gets a bite to eat, rests for the night. He's been riding for most of the day. Actually, he's been riding for a couple days. So at this point, he's pretty tired. And
is anyone else with him?
nope, he is by himself.
Sounds risky.
He is by himself. It is risky. But it's also easier to get away.
It's only one person.
It's only one person. So he doesn't have any backup. But if he needs to leave, he doesn't have to worry about anybody else either. So he rests up in the first town, Jill's town, and also Brett's town. They're both from here. And then he makes off. He makes off for the port town on the bay. Julian, stop. So he rides his way a couple days to get back to the bay town. Now this is where he's from. So he knows some people there. He knows some of the shadier people that associate themselves with the docks. Some of the younger thieves. But he hasn't been there in a little while. He hasn't been there in several months, almost a year. So things are a little different. You know, he's a lot healthier. He's eaten better now that he's joined Brett's group. But he's lost some friends, and by lost I mean he hasn't been back to this town in a while, and he hasn't hung out with them. It's not safe. He can't breathe. Stop being stupid. So he gets back to town and quickly makes his way down to the docks, trying to catch up with some of his old friends, get some information. maybe recruit them to his cause. And no sooner does he show up than someone recognizes him. They say, "Hey, we haven't seen you in forever. Where have you been?" Well, he doesn't really want to tell them, but he needs to come up with something. So he says, "Well, I went traveling the countryside with my parents. They..."
Does he have parents?
Yes, he has parents. Everyone has parents.
No, but did they die?
No.
Were they bandits? And
They are bandits.
Do we know the parents?
No, you don't know the parents. Not yet.
Do other people?
Yes, his parents exist. People know that they exist.
Okay.
They are not ghosts.
I mean, Gabby and Joey.
No, but they exist.
No, they don't know them. So anywho, he says, "Where have you been?" "Oh, we've been traveling the countryside. We've been visiting relatives. We've been trying to find a nice, peaceful living. It was expensive here. It was difficult to live. The tax collectors were always coming by, wanting more. And now we live a freer life." Well, the young man that knows him, his old friend, says, "Well, I mean, that that sounds nice enough. I mean, it's a boring life, I suppose, but you know, it's okay if you can manage."
It's
So,
life.
so he says, "Well, how have things been here?" "Yeah, they've been okay. We've been scraping by with what we can get." He says, "Have you gotten in any trouble with the law?" He says, "Oh, no. I'm very quick and I'm very good at my trade. I pick pockets and I play cards. I make enough of a living that way, enough to keep me out of any real trouble. I try not to gamble too big because that's going to draw a lot of attention, and I don't need that kind of attention. It's hard enough being an orphan on the streets of a big city. I don't need anyone looking into my whereabouts."
Wait,
"Yes,
stop.
yes.
He said he was an orphan,
I did say he was an orphan."
but he said he was traveling along the countryside with his parents.
Wrong person. This is the other guy. This is the guy that he met in the town who is an orphan. One of the dockside children that he used
So
to
what's
hang
the
out with.
person's name?
Which one?
The person.
The person he was talking to.
The person he's talking to? The guy that lives there?
Mhm.
His name is...
Jellybert.
No. No, that's a weird name. No. His name is Seth.
Jellybert.
No. Seth is the orphan.
That sounds like a girl name.
Seth?
Yeah.
No, that's a boy name.
I mean, okay, if you think it does. It's not, but... So then he says, "Well,
My neck is cold.
are you hungry at all? Because I could use for some food. I've been on the road for a while. And I also have something that you might be interested in. I need some help. I'm looking for some information." Seth thinks about it and says, "Oh, well, I mean, I'd be more than happy to catch up with you, and I'm always hungry. So sure, let's go down to the market." They make their way down to the market.
What?
And they pick up a loaf of bread. They pick up some cheap, weak wine. Basically just some flavored water, juice.
Soda.
Well, not soda, but
Soda's too expensive
not
for them.
carbonated. No fizz. No fizz.
It's basic.
Katie, soda's too expensive.
Okay, so
Soda is basically colored water with flavor.
yeah. So they get some juice. They get some bread. And because he's in the mood, he gets a half sausage. like a big sausage that they can share together, like a breakfast sausage.
Yes. Hey.
Not like a breakfast sausage you put on your plate. This is like what you put with cheese and crackers.
What?
Sausage.
Oh, sausage.
Yep.
I thought you were talking about hot dog for a second.
No. Although I think hot dogs are kind of sausage.
They basically are.
I think so.
They're both pig.
Okay, they don't have to be. But anyway, so then they go and they find a nice place on the side of the road that they're not going to be bothered, and they start talking. They start sharing their breakfast, and at one point, he looks to Seth and he says, "So, you've never had any run-ins with the law?" And Seth says, "No. I'm like I said, I'm quite good at what I do." He says, "Really? Because I'm a little interested in what the inside of the prison here looks like. I've never seen it myself, and
Is this where the map is?
well, that's where he thinks the map is. That's where he's getting information about." He says, "I'd like to find out." There you go. I'd like to find out some information about the prison here, how it runs, and I might be looking to get somebody out. So he's using a prison break as a cover. He doesn't want to tell him he wants to break in. It's more reasonable that he wants to break out. Well, Seth thinks about this for a second, says, "Okay, we've known each other a while, but you're right. I may or may not have spent 1 or 2 nights in the town jails. You know, I'm good at what I do, but everybody gets caught every once in a while. Nothing big, just some pickpocketing here, some minor larceny. I haven't done anything big enough that they really throw the book at me, but they tried to scare me here and there. So why do you want to know? Who is it you're interested in?" Well, he doesn't know any names, and he doesn't want to say something that he get caught for. So he just tries to give some non-information and says, "Well, I don't really want to get into it, but there's somebody that's been there for a minute, and I'm interested in seeing their release, or at least talking to them. It's someone I haven't spoken to in a good long time. So if I wanted to get a message to someone in the prison or the jails, or if I wanted to talk to them directly, do you know who I would talk to set that up? Is there any guards that maybe need something done or could be persuaded to let a young boy speak to his uncle?"
Means.
Is there a guard that could let a young boy speak to his uncle? Kind of give it a wink. Obviously not his real uncle. And Seth thinks about it and says, "I try not to associate with the guards, but I can ask around for you. Depending on what I find out, it might cost you. But, we can see what we can find out."
Is Paige comfortable like that?
So, with that, Seth takes his leave and starts walking back to the docks, where he's going to start his day. He's going to keep his eyes open, and he's going to keep his ears open, and he will check back and report what he finds.
Are we done?
In the meantime, our little boy makes his way over to the local church, tells them that he is a poor orphan, and asks if he can stay with them.
Wait, which one?
The boy that was sent there.
The boy that is a thief?
Not the real orphan. They're both thieves.
Not the person who lives there.
Yeah, not the one that was sent there. Well, the nuns that live there, they take pity on this little boy who appears to be upstanding. He's not dirty. He's not completely malnourished, giving the idea that, maybe he's not a terrible vagrant like they try and keep out of their halls. Maybe he's not going to rob from them, which he actually has no intention of doing. You don't bite the hand that feeds you. So they let him in. They give him a quiet little place to stay. And they give him a mop.
A mom?
A mop.
Yes, a mom.
Why does he
Where's
need
your
a
mom?
mop?
He needs a mop because if he's going to be staying there, he is going to have to clean the halls. Well, he thinks that this is a...
So you have to do a job for staying there.
He does have to do a job for staying there, and he thinks that this is a perfectly acceptable situation.
Yeah,
So he
I would
takes
be
the mop.
okay with it.
He thanks them greatly for their generosity, and he gets to mopping.
Mop, mop, mop,
And the
mop,
whole
mop,
time?
mop, mop.
And now he has some contacts checking out the streets. He's got a place to stay. And the place he's chosen to stay also happens to be where a lot of the rich and influential cross paths in the church. So he thinks he's done pretty well for himself for one day. And Julian, stop trying to tear your sister's clothes.
Gabby?
Julian, we're done.
Supposed
You're arguing anything in the middle of the story. So, we will end it here since you really want to argue and fight. And we'll pick up tomorrow. Okay. Good night, baby. All right, love you.